So in the previous slot, we covered three modules. In the current slot, we are going to engage with the fourth module that is all about engaging right market platform. So as of this international marketing for logistics and supply chain management, module 4 is concerned, we are entering into the gateway of matrix identification towards overseas management and as well as getting the right remedial option for which we need to take some action plan, and those action plan has to be recovered unless and until it is not engaged with the standard plan of manipulating the details of supply chain relevant sequences. So in order to be the part of this international marketing for logistics and supply chain, we are entering into the frame of foundation, how the matrix is being identified from the foundation, from the beginning of these frames, and politically speaking, which are all the phrases of evaluating the right scheme of understanding and engaging all the international commercial terms for manipulating the responsibilities of individual buyer and individual seller without any respect of irrespective of any inputs towards delivery. So I repeat, this foundation, what we are going to take up today in module 4, is going to give you some insights on how transportation of goods and services, transfer of knowledge, transfer of data systems, and what are all the required and relevant items which is to be focused on towards export and import policies prevailing in and around India. So the manipulated study, what we are going to take up today, is the use of defining the right responsibility of buyer and seller so that they may get a clarity on how the commercial and as well as systematic activities are going to engage. And also, this is going to be the real time survey of inculcating the basic plan, the basic ideation, and as well as the basic segments, which are all to be run through on a long scale activity. And predominantly, we are going to make sure that this is going to be the futuristic version of understanding the step by step process of export and import leverages. So, in order to execute these patterns, what could be the first level action plan to categorize the list of sequences? If we come to the first point, the core knowledge, what we are going to adapt or what we are going to take up is not that easy because the fundamental operations and as well as the primary goal setters are not that sequential in order. They are varying from one entry to other entry, but operationally speaking, it is going on in a scalable factor. But non-operationally speaking, there are some mislag, there are some lags, and there are some misinterpretation prevailing. That is the reason for a lot of closure of company. The too in service sector, the export and import procedures are not flown with respect to the previous body of iteration to the successive body of iteration, and intra level or intra and as well as inter level are not properly survival, is properly not maintained, and proper survival is not being done. And because of this issue, there are some changes in international commercial terms. And basically, we are in the situation analysis to get into the second most important thing is work study. That is what workflow. It is a definition of measurable, analyzable, implementable, and controllable elements. It fluctuates from one border to other border, So that's why the reason of telling it intra level and inter level. And coming to the Incoterms, that is third point, the responsible terms which are all to be taken into consideration for effective and smoother supply chain is regardless of risk, cost, and delivery. And people are not depending on third party or the intermediary unless and until the middleman concept is to be thrown away. That is what we discussed in the last session. That is how to strategize and how to remove the barrier or the delay in process of inculcating the middleman activity, which is to be thrown away for executing the smoother supply chain. So the possibilities in making the right supply chain is in a critical or a crucial phase. And that crucial phase is moreover focusing on how to acquire the approval physically. In today's essential documentational process, when we go across borders for movement of goods and services, and there must be a physical document evidence to be proven, and that could not be duplicated or fabricated because of its originality and approval process are getting stringently monitored. And today's transparency is lacking a majority of logistics and shipping, and that requires more and more transparency for evaluating this critical requirement. So this crucial phase will be faced by a lot of companies, will be faced by a lot of materials segmenting companies, and those companies might not be in the same situation to note down the possibilities across different management of operations. So for a better management of operation, we need to gain the basic knowledge. We need to provide some insights on techniques of operations, and then we need to understand the global supply chain process. And finally, we need to involve the role of technology too, and how much innovation progress is there in operations as a segment. So, as we all discuss every question, then and there, we may fail or we may be in a situation to note down some important critical area that is to be focused with the added benefits and how the benefits are going to manipulate it or how the questions are going to interpret it from the jurisdiction which is to be highlighted in the different zone. So this different zone activity is not that much categorizable or that much proliferatable for making the right acquisition, for making the right legal and physical entry. And finally, we are getting into the request stating that the management of operations is stringently done and we didn't violate and we didn't have any differentiation between production and as well as the standard. And then we are analyzing the forecasted errors, mean absolute error or mean absolute deviation, and how the capacity requirement planning has been done. And these are all the segments which is to be considered for understanding the outcomes, which is moreover work study oriented or method study oriented, is to be based on either push and pull logic. So, in the previous classes, we discussed about push and pull logics, and those push and pull logics has to be taken into stringent consideration for mapping the real-time segments. And those real-time segments are up to the mark, and we need some benefits to be over those up-to-date element. What are all those up-to-date elements are with respect to AOA? As we discussed legally, there must be some articles of association, memorandum of association. And finally, when a product is getting into a particular segment, how many times I need to encroach these kind of elements and which is to be added with the benefits. So how the beneficially functional analysis BFA, this BFA is the first matrix of any logistics and shipping firm which is moving a consignment from one point of source to other point of destiny. So I repeat, whenever a destiny is being identified, whoever points out it or whoever speaking it from a legal perspective or technological perspective or irrespective of any kind of borders, there might be some stringent categorization for understanding the Incoterms without any flaw or without any fluctuation. Once after identifying this, there must be some criterion for manipulating the list of iterations in a tremendous manner. And this tremendous factor is listed out with the view of understanding it from the basic version, right from the foundation of each and every strategy. And getting into a new scope of business actions is not that easy, but provided governance has to be done. And there must be ESG framework, that is environmental, social, and governance factor. So if I focus on these three elements continuously in a synchronized way, I need not depend on any other problem statement which is to be monitored from the external part of analyzing it. So it is very easy for me to understand the concepts and as well as the filaments, which is to be noted down from the utmost element of requirements. And then we can easily understand the inspection is properly done, and those inspections are also recorded, for which we need to take some remedial action. And those remedial action will be executed with the standard protocol, with the comprehensive elements, with the literal survey of understanding it from the real-time vision and mission process. So the remedial vision, the remedial mission executed right from beginning till end, it is reaching the destiny, irrespective of all the terms. I have some exercisable goods and services which is to be procedurally checked. Once after checking it procedurally, I may connect it with the global standard. I may sign an understanding with a foreign agency, or I may go for trade composition and direction, which is directed towards a foreign collaborated company or a collaborated product where barter economy is more predominant than monetary economy. Exchange of goods is good rather than buying those goods for money. So, when I talk about the executional phases, the primary partners, the primary country participating in a business is something phenomenal in today's trade and markets. So, globally speaking, the policies are as very transparent and as very simple for us to take a remedial action. And those remedial actions are up to date and they are traded with the primary focus. And those primary focus are developing towards policy reformation, covering the basic recovery, and then specializing the suitable areas which is to be focused on. So these many things are done and making all the things into real time understanding, it is getting into a zone of manipulating the things. And finally, it is traded internationally for accustoming a data. And those data are analyzed from the competitive rivalry manner. Once after understanding the competitive rivalry, the trade agreement is accepted and signed. It is checked with the proper documentation, and finally, it is reaching the destiny called R&D. So, the inspection, once after identifying the thirst or the remedy or the needful criteria, it is taken for mapping any kind of differentiations in a remedial way. So, those remedial way are not documented physically, but they have taken some action which is without any plan. That immediate action or that non-accountable action, what we generally used to call it as non-accountable action, which is not recorded as per the protocol or as per the record, it will not be there. But remedially speaking, we need to take it out for a immediate change of motion. So those change of motion study or those change of mission study or exercisable goods and services, we may go for trend analysis. Sometimes we may adapt some activity which is outside the box. I repeat, out of 100, there might be some 5% of tolerance. Statistically speaking, 95% of success rate and 5% of test rate. We cannot say it like failure rate. It can be rated like test rate for understanding this plus or minus 5 percentage might be the test rate for checking the documentation, checking the exercisable goods, and checking all the action plans, whether it is up to date or whether it is to be updated. So both the things are to be checked it out, irrespective of any matters of concern. We need an action plan, we need a semester plan, we need a yearly plan, and then only a company is adapting its situational analysis irrespective of documentation, payments, subscription, etc. Either it could be a 1 year of full plan or a half yearly plan or even quarterly plan is also done in some of the industry for understanding the pattern of production and the pattern of serviceability what they provide. But because of doing all these things, what is the outcome? So we need to know the outcome. So that is the question I have posted. So this particular question is direction of Indians, especially the people of India and their foreign trade principles, how they are examined. So my question is on examination of real-time standards, manipulating the real-time standards into understanding the behavior. And once after understanding the behavior, we need a check plan. And that check plan is done with the real-time motion. And those real-time motions are patternized into schematic representation. So my question is on that particular activity. So may I get an option? So this particular option, anyone could post your answers in the chat box. Any options, answers for this particular question? So this particular question is directed on India's foreign trade. This India's foreign trade is applicable irrespective of any zones and any categorization, starting from logistical routes. May I get your options in chat box? This particular question is focusing on logistical route or list of specific commodity or geographical distributions and logistical specific countries which are all trading with, and then focusing on total monetary value. Fine. The right option for this particular question is going to be on geographical distribution. Because of logistical routes and list of specific commodity, we may get the target. But when we focus on the real-time understanding and the real-time classifications of business, we need to focus on the geographical distribution and the specific countries who are all participating and trading with. And once after understanding the right geographical distribution only, we may go for the commodity. And based on the commodity and the volume of the commodity only, we may plan for the routes and shipping lanes. Then taking a freight forwarding into control, we are finalizing the monetary value. So the examination pattern will be on CBAD. This is how we plan accordingly for manipulating India's foreign trade policies and executing these trade policies into the real-time scopus of business action. And those business actions are also accustomed in order to be a part and parcel of direction. And manipulating these part and parcel of direction is also highlighted and removed the barriers which are all still problematic and still culturally differentiated. So I repeat, once after understanding the problematic zones, I need to throw it away from the international perspective. So getting into the domestic performances. So international performances, whatever we had an idea is tracked, is recently analyzed, is trend analysis, everything has been done. But once after doing all these things, the policies and the trade, whatever we do within the country, must get anticipated. Why I am mentioning it as a stressable pointers, when we try to anticipate these anticipated market changes or regulatory in shifting one change of data to the other change of data. I repeat, this anticipation, what we are going to expect from the market, is regulatorily done, tracking the recent activity and then taking the remedial action for changing the pattern of mix and match. So once after, if it is getting mixed and matched, please avoid the segmental activity which is to be maintained silently. So whenever we are maintaining the proper silence in making the right remedial action, it is properly getting distributed, it is properly getting analyzed. Is this particular activity is mapping with the standard, and all the mapping activities of exclusively we are focusing on economical import and export of data, and this export and import of data is to assess the economic health of any country which is domestically performing well. So these regulatory practices, these shifting of practices is independently focusing on market changes. I repeat, this independent market changes are regulatorily done, and those regulatory activities are upcoming with the new policies and trackable and non-trackable evidences. Those who are non-trackable, those who are non-tradable must get arrested, and they must be thrown away from the sequence of activity. Please, enough of these kind of trackable and non-trackable evidences. So whenever we are trading these policies in a remedial way, it is better to get through the concepts which are all non-remedial aspect also. So since in the last frame we discussed about the domestical practices, when the foundations are not proper, the foundation was focusable on agreement, free trading, India's interaction with global trade, foreign trade, analysis of variances, export import exempt policies, all put together and highlighting the shift of remedial action. So when I focus on right shift, right foreign trade, that dominates India's export and import portfolios. So those import and export portfolios are not arrested or not concurrently focused on destiny, and those destiny are shiftable. And if it is not shiftable, please make trading which is, unless and until if it is not shiftable, make it into real time understanding of data. And those data which are all corrected, kindly consider it from the geographical destination. Then only we may plan for the routes, and then only we may go for other allocations of monetary and non-monetary governances. So I repeat, in this particular portfolio check, we need to focus on how many times we need to understand the behavioral process. And those behavioral processes based on ESG framework, that is environmental, social, and governance framework. So once these governance environmental factors are thrown away to the open crowd, it is easy for us to catch, it is easy for us to examine, and it is easy for us to categorize whether the goods and services which are all dominant are still holding the market or not. So when it is getting de-risked, it is that easy for us to master ourselves in different sort of policy, in different sort of trade promotion schemes, and subsidizes the higher cost of difficulty and barrier. Most importantly, I highlight this term, how barrier it is to. So how much barrier problems we are facing with respect to market composition. And those market compositions are not because of poor mastering. So major people who are all in the industry are not getting mastering because of poor aspects of elements or difficulty in interacting with the consumers and making the right portfolio on time. So these are all the lame excuses. One and only the company is facing the de-risking is because of not understanding the export import policies thoroughly, and where does it get impacted, and what is the influencing factor. So these things has to be understood by meeting lot of export and import experts, and getting interaction with a lot of people who are all in daily trading, and then only we may understand and analyze the problem, and there comes the inspection. Without even understanding the grassroots value or the grassroots issue, both in positive term and negative term, both in the codification of grassroots problem and grassroots benefit, If you are not thorough enough, the codification what we configure will not be that much scalable or that much understandable for acquiring the mastering class of basics of exim policies. So this exim policies must be taken into the proper understanding and making it into the next level portfolio for becoming a standard. And that subsidizable standard is what we are expecting today in the competitive business environment. And that computational business environment is tradable, non-tradable, commutable, non-commutable. It has both the sides of coin. And finally, when it reaches the end user, it has some remedial action plan. That action plan is operational predictability. I repeat, operational predictability is nothing but modeling, accuracy rate, and finally, regulatory of the progress. So, when it tries to protect the entire configuration without even leaking what I'm trying to make it out in the upcoming production year. In this production year, I plan it well. In the upcoming production year, I'm going to launch a new product, and that predictability should be very, very less. No one should guess my outcome of the new launch. It ensures like all the export and import, it is nevertheless focusing on leaking of my confidential data or the confidential portfolios unless and until if it is thrown away in your own dustbin, even the scrap which is thrown away in dustbin should not come out or leak out as the rejected portfolio. Even the rejected portfolio should not come out as a regulatory problem. And that is majorly done in lot of differential factors, in lot of differential platforms. And provisionally speaking, it is gathering the intermediary, it is gathering the export and import areas, and provisionally speaking, it is focusing on profit margins and protection from regulatory and non-regulatory volatility. So, on the whole, when I go for the clear-cut understanding of policy making, direction, all the authentication policies, all the rivalries which are all driven from the real-time understanding is highlighted. And moreover, these kind of highlightable elements and these kind of monotonous element or not that much levels of understanding is proliferated. And based on the proliferation, what we are trying to implement or what we are trying to configure is damn easy for us to note down because of its poor understanding. And those poor understanding are non-regulatory in frameworks. I repeat, those poor understandings and those poor non-regulatory frameworks are repeatedly focused again and again for taking the remedial action plans. So those remedial action plans which are all connected, which are all well driven, and which are all well proliferated, well regulated, well driven, well proliferated elements are mostly connected. I repeat, mostly connected to the business environment. So those mostly connected business environments are regulated or understood from ensuring the profit margins and protecting the business environment in such a way, in clear way, in predicted way, and that is directed regarding the trade intermediaries. So positive landing on a safe zone, this particular positive landing on a safe zone is highlighted, I repeat, is highlighted to the core of understanding the core competent factor. I repeat, the core competent factor, what we are gathering in today's business environment competition is that much regulated and that much proliferated. So I make this frame as the most important frame. Kindly take your screenshots in this of understanding its behavior. This understanding behavior, this frame is most importantly connected. Please do take maximum screenshots and highlight this frame. This is the most important questioning area across divisions. This questioning area is the most important levels of regulatory volatility. So I repeat, regulatory volatility is the most functionalizing elements for taking the remedial action plan. So this remedial action plan has been taken. I have made a suitable ATR, that is action taken report. So after taking a right action taken report, I am making these bonds, which is very transparent to my business environment, and making these action plans into the wholesome activity. For a logistics policy, what are all the things in which I can engage the business platforms? So these engageable business platforms are again nurturing me. This nurturing area, I need to focus. I need to check it out whether these things are going in the right way or not. So for a nurturing activity, so what could be the definition? What could be the customary activity? So for a logistical activity professional, there should not be any risk of loss or damage. There should be some always a compensation. If I could not make you the promised serviceability, I will compensate with the alternate serviceability which is planned in the next week. So I may plan in such a way, this plan, whatever we are identifying towards geographical location, which is fulfilling the delivery obligations of each and every market, irrespective of transport difficultiness. I repeat, irrespective of how much ever difficultiness is there in transport, I take delivery responsibility. I take precise location. I involve myself and my team and my core competent evaluational terms to get into beneficially function analysis. This BFA framework is more competent to ESG framework. Once after environmental social governance activity is done, I need to focus on beneficially function analysis. For me need to get customary activities and duties without a flaw in the existing market. I repeat, the flaw what we are going to forecast today, which is most important flaw rate analysis. Once if you are understanding and forecasting the flaw rate today, I'll give you the confidence that you take maximum liability, including free charges or including the insurances or the terminal. It is end-to-end encrypted activity. You will not have a lack of liability. You will have always a hold, and that hold is not a one day's task. It may need some action plan for me to take a remedial terms, irrespective of any plans and culturals. So, getting into the frame of documentation taxonomy, so for a better taxonomy, what we need to plan or what we need to categorize is, so documentations are remedially taken, possibly driven, data analytically done, and then statutory frameworks are being done, and possibly we are taking some alternate plans for just taking the literal survey. So those literal survey, what we are taking it from the relatable to the shipment or BOL, that is what we call it as bill of lading, or giving a letter of credit, LOC. So these are all the terms which are all to be maintained as a document, and it has a taxonomy. As our knowledge level taxonomy plays a vital role, like remembering, understanding, applying, evaluating, analyzing, and then creating. Right from the Bloom's taxonomy, what we talk in educational management system, same like we have a documentation taxonomy which is to be dealt on logistical management system. So commercially, regulatorily, or giving assurance or end-to-end functions, there are some customary action, and those customary actions are always connected to the payment or verification or understanding the regulatory frameworks of taxable and non-taxable logistical activity. And those taxable and non-taxable logistical activity are always connected to the common web house, and that web house is nothing but outstanding supply chain frameworks. I repeat, outstanding supply chain frameworks, and that should be queued up. and there should be a queuing theory, and there should be a declaration. There should be some statutory rebate forms which is to be given transparently for getting a proper understanding of financial and non-financial, commercial, non-commercial terms, which is internationally and as well as domestically. So these many things has to be dealt on from the managerial perspective, and then only we may get an INCO terms, that is international commercial terms is not preparated or proliferated on a single day. So they do affect the document preparation responsibility if there is a small error. So the determination or the conciseness of INCO terms relatable to shipment or relatable to document, or depending on how shipment is workable, whether there is a former workaholic pattern, or whether there was a delivered duty paid which was already preparing documents relatable to the accessible goods, and whether there was a satisfactory shift between buyer and seller, whether there was a negotiation happening. If not, what could be the standard rate? If it is an unnegotiated element, what could be the standard rate? So these kind of delegation, as a managerial researcher or a scholar, I suggest you people to focus on how many people were deputed since the origin of the logistical activity until date. So we should take the survey of how many work patterns were there, and then only we may have a shift of a right buyer and a right seller, and positively we may take a satisfaction survey whether the INCO terms are affecting the document preparation and responsibilities on track or not. I repeat, the delivered duty or the surveillance, whatever we take or whatever we understand, irrespective of the demand, irrespective of the category, is to be manipulated, is to be checked it out from the version of logistical people and the process who are all into the matter of concern. And mapping it into the next level understanding is documented, and getting into the next level questioning is also important. So these many questions or these many ideations, what we take it out, is not that connected. And even though if it is not connected, I may fail or I may lack in preparing the X work and as well as the delivered work. So for a better delivered work, what we are going to target it out or what we are going to emergize is the emergence or the origin can literally make sure this as the non-restricted responsibility. Underline the word non-restricted responsibility. So I do not have any restrictions unless and until it is going to be the futuristic version of taking the action without a predecessor and successor plan. If I am okay to take this kind of decision, then it is damn easy for me to take a decision which is free from bias. So my next question to you all people is how this is going to cover it out in a remedial action plan of compositional Indian foreign accommodative trade planning. So out of the entire options, again, the options has a ranking. So there are people participating in employable of export oriented units, and we have values for them, we have categories for them, and we have partnerships for them. So by taking all these things together and we are taking a action plan which is assessed and submitted as a record. By submitting those records, we are having so many files of office, private or government. Regarding export and import, we have a bulk of files. Document evidences are properly maintained or fabricated. Irrespective of maintaining or fabricating, it is never the problem. But they do have papers. If the inspection team is coming, they are open to show the papers. But whether these papers are properly executed or not, we don't know. So, out of the four options, the option B, at a specific types and category, takes the first position. So, apart from taking the categorizations of goods and services, What could be the next level of value proposition or the different demographical, since we talk about geographical indication, since the last question was focusing on geographical distribution, we may have people talking different languages, and that is also possibly a trader must understood, and they must undergo these kind of difficulty also in manipulating the compositions of Indians foreign trade. Right from JNK till Kanyakumari, we don't know what are all the expectations of various traders, and we are analyzing people who are all from our own country collaborating with a foreign country for relatable or a current requirement or employability or understandability, ensuring the capability, capacity, planning, everything A to Z. We need to take it out as an employable terms. And those employable terms are categorized into various kind of understanding. And to be very precise, these kind of understandings are updated and accustomed to the patterns of inculcating these ideas. And based on these ideas, we are manipulating the differentiated outcomes. And those outcomes are also taken into verification. So when I go for verification, the maximum quality or the maximum contractual specification, what they expect is I should have correlation. Without a correlation, if there is a document is there in the file, please throw the document. Don't keep the document in the file. If I turn the pages of my file, my first page must have a correlation with the fifth page or 10th page or even the successive pages, and that is in decreasing order. Since we file it the oldest record in the first, we name it as right top corner as a number one, number two. So irrespective of the various papers what we add on, the decreasing numbers will be there taking place in the right top corner of the paper. By getting the correlation of the 10th paper with the 7th paper or 7th paper with the 5th paper only, we may conclude that the activities of logistics and supply chain are going in a proper manner. If this is not seen in your file, please throw the file. The file is waste scrap. It should be thrown in dustbin. And unless and until if there is no correlation between papers of a particular file, it does not talks about the volume of the file. Since I have first file, second file, third file, I have 10 number of versions and phases. There is no point of maintaining 10 volumes or 10 editions of filing rather than keeping all in a single track of record and justifying your work. And thus justifying your work is what the third party agency is doing today. And we are leaving our audit process or an audit tension to the, and they are coming and fabricating the document and they are giving the fabricated document that no one knows. And finally the company approves it and the company goes out with the credit. And they are paying around a 10 percentage or 15 percentage of total revenue what they are getting to the consultant, and they are closing the inspection process. This is a wiser way of tackling thing, but it is not a wiser way of engaging thing. I repeat, tackling is different, engaging is different. For ensuring the right quality, right engageability, and right purpose, what I would like to, proliferate here is please assume a company is always with full powers, responsibility, delegation, etc. But it is not with standard procedures and documentation flow. I repeat, there must not be standard documentation and flow, and that documentational flow will be the remedial plan or will be the important issue for me to take action which is no way connected to the customs clearances. And this reason pull down the entire exporter and the importer from their ranking ladders. I repeat, and this will pull down lot of people who are not connected to the business platform without any prerequisite if they are coming and standing. that issue will sort it out in a differential way. And that differential manner is also simply done in a schematical manner. And that schematical manner is also a problem. And those problems are also connected to the people who are all trade related and framework related. And those frameworks are establishing the specific target, and those target are highlightable to the maximum number of delivery and the maximum number of people who are all connected to the end-to-end encrypted element. And specific certification plans are not required. People are taking in a wrong way. Exporters and importers are in a position to take the fleet control, the custom clearances, the order receipt, invoices, bill of records, bill of lading, letter of credit, everything. But provided we should not take a step which is not mandatory unless and until it is not taken from the agreement. I repeat, if it is not mentioned in the trade agreement of intra or inter country policies, please do not take a stand of agreement and that is not procedurally fitting in the policy. If it is not procedurally fitting into the policy, please throw it away from the business plan. And that throwing it away from the business plan has to be taken from the action and making the remedial action into the literal zone of taking into highlightable activity. So, as we pointed out, the INCO terms, this INCO terms, that is international commercial terms, has to be specifically withdrawn, and there must be some iterative study and survey in order to ensure the correctness and as well as the rectification. All put together, we are mapping some action plan, and those action plan is to the maximum of maximum engaging the part and parcel of procedural elements. This procedural element always focusable on manipulating literal study of making the or creating the forum. So when you are being the part of this discussion forum, any discussion forum for a company, when you visit as an external expert, this forum gives you maximum understanding, maximum clarity, and maximum people who are all allocatable for engaging the online and as well as the corresponding issues with respect to the factors of executive programs. And those executive programs are highlightable and manipulatable for taking actions which are all across various forums. So this forum is again a problematic scenario and mapping the right understanding and cleansing the environment with the prerequisite knowledge, with the correction note, with the connecting factor, and taking the actions which are all forwarding the customs and clearances without any furthermore issue. So once after making all these issues into the action plan, I repeat, this action plan is finally getting into policy and its takeaways. So for a better policy, for a better identification, the policies, what and all we are taking it today, has to be taken, has to be connected, and has to be withdrawn. I repeat, it should be withdrawn from the work which is to be non-segmental towards manipulating the details. So these manipulated details, which are all evidentially connected and evidentially mapped, has to be taken like win-win situation. I repeat, in majority of logistics company, win-win situation plays a vital role. This win-win situation is not just like that taken into consideration. It is into the real-time understanding and mapping the most important factors. And once after understanding the important factors are listed in the ranking priority, and they are having some risk of communication, risk of document evidences, and handling the compliances with the specialized team. Once after the audit is done and they are making some remedial plan, taking some action which is up to dated to satisfy the mandatory requirements is okay. But for satisfying those mandatory requirements, primary work has to be done, and that is lacking in a lot of company. Without even doing my primary work, how I can claim, how I can confirm the agency to take negotiable or non-negotiable supply chain value. It is highly ridiculous and as well as highly non-compatible, especially to term it like it is a non-compatible issue which is non with the environment. And those non-synchronized with the environment is highly volatile and highly insecure for making a trading environment to more primarily transparent. I repeat, more primarily transparent. So these kind of activities and these kind of segmental behavioral are all connected, and the risk transfer is highly approachable for a democratic environment to get into an autocratic environment. So since it is a democratic market plan, it is like by the people or by the consumer of the consumer and for the consumer. But if it is getting an autocratic environment, it should be like operated by an operator, and there must be some followers. Even if they like or don't like, they need to take the action plan, and that has to be taken into wholesome action. So these are all the things which is procedurally done and which is paperly connected, which is recordedly done, and there is no outcome planned. If these things are done in a synchronized way, it is better like there are essential, vital, and desirable elements. And for a procedural evidences, we must take an authentication, we must take a remedial plan, or we need to take a control of understanding its behavior, making the action plan, and putting the action plan into remedial zones, and taking these remedial zones and giving the clarity is not that easy, and for which only people are struggling like anything for us to get a clarity. And those clarity is since non-avoidable, and handling targets is not that easy. So global risk is there, global participation is there, global essential, vital, desirable factors are there. And once after doing all these things only, we are taking the takes of resilience. And those resilience are mostly triggered and mostly monitored, stating like these regulatory frameworks. So when you focus on regulatory frameworks, it is to be highlighted on those area, those category, and those segmental factors. And those factors which are all to be noted down from the global partners, from the essential partners, from the transfer of procedural evidences. So, in order to conclude this, so whenever we are having some mandatory elements, don't make it as a mandatory document alone. Make it as a mandatory executed part so that it will have a technical zone or a technical hierarchy stating that these. So let me highlight this plan into a remedial way. So these kind of risking, that is in code terms, all are well connected, well executed, well distributed, and well understanding. So all the understanding, all the elementalizations are also to be noted from the hierarchy of manipulating the evidences. So I make it a most important term. The risk transfer from the global partner is directly proportional to the number of risk taken into consideration. So how many times I'm taking the risk with reference to the overall factor, and making the international trade policies are also to connect or also to have the most important for me to take all the executed parts. So These executed parts, these executed evaluational are also connected in order to ensure the rightness and as well as the correctness for mapping the differences between the regulatory frameworks and as well as the international frameworks, and for which we need to conclude in such a way for understanding the wellness pattern. So those wellness pattern are also to note it down in order to connect it with the global market and global team. So these are all the basic conclusions where we can connect with the incoterms. So with this, close the frame. So I have shared you the frames of incoterms, which is the first half of module 4. So any doubts relevant to the discussion, you can post it in the chat box. Any doubts related to the class or discussion, you may post it in chat box. Anything to be repeated or any doubts, any responses. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Subhash. Thank you. So thanks for the patient listening. Thank you, one and all. We'll close the session.